picked up at the Occupy Jolobi House Part 2 demonstration, which was geared towards getting the President of the Republic and the Executive to move in a certain way to stop illegal mining. Lord, good morning, welcome.
Thank you, John.
How are we doing?
I'm very well, thank you.
How was court yesterday?
Tipsy to me. Interesting, really.
What happened in court yesterday?
So, prior to yesterday, the Circuit Court had remanded democracy protesters into prison and police custody after denying them bail. So they escalated the matter to the High Court to take another swing at it. So yesterday, there were two batches in court. Essentially, two separate courts heard the matter. There was one at the Criminal Court 4, presided over by Justice Comfort Tasiame, and then the General Jurisdiction 12, presided over by Aite Ama, Justice Aite Ama Tete. Now, at the Criminal Court 4, it had Ama Governor, Eloma Bibiu, and then 8 others. And then the General Jurisdiction 12 had Oliver Bakavomawo, Felicity Nelson, and then the others. So I first went to where Ama Governor was, where Justice Comfort Tasiame was. So in hearing the bill application, their lawyers argued that they had fixed places of abode and that they were not flight risk. And so they prayed that the courts grant them the bail. Now, this is where it got interesting. The Attorney General's office, the state attorneys, they opposed the bill application.
That's contrary to the public sentiment that we had heard the President and the Attorney General express.
Indeed.
In fact, they did even a CJ that, this should be expedited.
Yes, and you recall especially the Attorney General of Ebadame a little over a week ago. I think it's been actually 7 days exactly. During the conference of the magistrates and judges, categorically stated that he actually directed that the police expedite the investigations so that the innocent ones will be released, and then continued by saying that they should consider the bill applications, the relevant bill applications, once they are made. So once the opposition by the state attorneys was made, was a bit surprising, but regardless, the judge hearing the matter, after considering both arguments, said that their bill application had some merit, and so granted them the bill application, and it was 70,000 Ghana cedis each for all 9 protesters in that court, with 2 sureties.
What about the sureties?
The landed properties and all that. And then there was also the direction that they should submit their Ghana cards to the registry and then report to the police weekly until the final determination of their case. And then at the General Jurisdiction 12, where it had Oliver Bakavomawo, Felicity Nelson and co, they had a lot more lawyers over there. So like they did at the Circuit Court, you had different lawyers arguing for, they picked separate protesters individually, and then they will argue for the bill application. So this person makes the arguments, and then he's granted a bill, and then Dr. Justice Remsa, he's the lead counsel for Oliver Bakavomawo, and then Felicity Nelson. So he made the argument that these are very prominent, credible individuals. They have identifiable fixed places of abode, and then they are not flight risk. Now, he made this case because prior to that, the other lawyers who were making the case for their clients had argued that they hadn't been able to have conference with some of the protesters, and so they hadn't been able to get the
understand, the weight of what they were going through and what they had to argue on their behalf.
Indeed, and they hadn't been able to acquire their addresses, which is required if you say that the person has a fixed abode. But it was a bit contradictory because in their affidavit and supports, they had stated that they had actually gotten all those and they had gotten the permission of their client. So the judge raised all that. So it was very important that Dr. Justice Remsa raised those issues. Now, after he raised those issues, the judge indicated that, Vomawo is already known. He's it's known that he's currently on trial for treason felony. And this case is not over. It's still ongoing. And this is a case that he's allegedly committed another offense.
But he's been granted bail for that treason felony.
Yes. So the judge's concern was that what is the assurance that if I grant him bail, he will not go and commit another offense and even show up in court when a bail is granted. And then Justice Shremside indicated that shouldn't be an issue because the treason felony charge, which is even has is weightier,
higher,
right?
Weightier.
He's been consistently coming to court for the past 3 years, and in some cases the prosecution side do not even turn up, but he still comes anyway.
Right.
So it's not a case that for misdemeanors he will not show up in court. So the judge was like, okay, that's fine. After listening to the arguments, and I must indicate here that at the General Jurisdiction 12, there were no representation from the prosecution.
Okay.
So it was just the lawyers making the case for
that means that Ama Governor and her people. Right.
So Ama Governor and her people, they had the prosecution present.
They were
state
there.
attorneys present.
But in Vakavomawo and Felicity Nelson cases, there was no
state attorneys present. So there was no opposition whatsoever. So it was just a case of the lawyers making the arguments for the bill application. So it was just between them and then the judge.
So it was the judge that refused the bail.
Indeed.
But not the AG that argued, that said that do not ask what we had seen in the first instance.
At all.
Okay.
At all.
I see.
So the judge indicated that.
And the judge is, the judge in this case, the Ni Ama.
He's Ama.
Justice Ama.
Amatese. Amatese, yes. Yes, Aite Amatese, Justice. So afterwards, and then he said that, okay.
So I need clarity. In the Bakavomawo Felicity Nelson case, the prosecution, which would be represented by the AG's office, were not there at all.
There was no.
So this was just the judge,
and then
Justice Amatete, and then the lawyers for Dr. Shremside,
yes,
representing Bakavomawo and Felicity Nelson,
indeed,
who were asking the judge or the court for the bail,
indeed,
and the judge says no because of the fact that he's already standing trial or prosecution and he has been granted bail. Now he has gone to commit this. I'm not too sure if I grant him bail, he will go and commit yet another. So because of that, I am refusing bail. That's
indeed,
what it is.
Exactly.
Okay.
Exactly. So afterwards, then he granted Felicity Nelson 20,000 bail with 2 sureties. Right. So essentially there were 21 persons, or I should say 12 persons in General Jurisdiction 12 who had applied for the bill, right? And they were granted, all of them, 20,000 each with 2 sureties, but Oliver Bakavomawo was declined or refused the bill. And as part of his directions,
he was the only one.
He was the only. No, there was actually. So eventually we got to know that there was another person. If you'd recall, on the first day that they appeared in court at the circuit court, it was Oliver and then another protester, Fanny Otu.
Right.
They were both. Right. They were both at the hospital, and so because they were in detention at the hospital, they couldn't appear. Right. But then the following day, Oliver came, but Fanny could still not show up, and so Fanny was also refused the bail because to begin with his plea has not been taken. Right. So the judge indicated that until that is done, his bail.
So where is Fanny now? Do we know where Fanny is?
That's something that we would have to confirm. We do not know that yet, but until we see it on remand. So after Oliver was refused the bail, the judge directed that the circuit court begin his trial in 72 hours. Said if that fails, then his bail application may be considered.
What was his demeanor in court yesterday when seeing that all his other colleagues had been granted bail but him?
Right, so here's the thing. Because yesterday was the arguments for the bail application, none of the protesters were in court.
None of them were
in court. But then, you know, at the last hearing at the circuit court, it was adjourned to today. So we're actually expecting them to come to court today because their trial will start today at the circuit court. But then, so this will be later in the day. But this morning, another batch of 20 protesters, their bail application will be heard at the High Court. Right?
And we don't know what their fate is yet. The court will have to determine that.
Indeed.
So as we speak, Ama Governor is out there. Felicity Nelson is out there, plus all the others who were granted bail. They're out there.
That is either we're able to post bail, because you know that's another process and frustrations altogether.
So you have to prove to the registry that this is your fixed abode. This is you have the capacity to be able to,
Your surety should match up, because they landed up,
and you have your Ghana card to submit. So if you have lost your Ghana card and you cannot submit
that's on you. You'd have to probably go and make another Ghana card.
And they'll strike, by the way. Anyway, thank you very much, Lord Edwards. I'm grateful.
Thank you, Johnny.
Courtroom, we are also outside, letting the public know that we are serious and we mean what we want to do. So they should give us